Hello and welcome to Movie Film Studios, the only podcast that takes you inside the mind of two film studio executives as we unravel and then re-ravel the best that Hollywood has to offer. I'm Isaac.
And I'm AJ, and today we're unceremoniously ejected from the Movie Film Studio Memorial Theatre. It's a sad, sad day, ladies and gentlemen. The lawyers have ousted us.
It's been building for a long time, and I've been sort of looking down at the many, many flaws of lawyers and thinking, what is going to be the catalyst for them finally sort of taking over?
Yep.
And it was Dave.
It was Dave.
Last week, we brought in an executive from Sydney Down Under Films, thinking that we would acquire the intellectual property, but it's backfired on us. Mm-hmm. He has acquired our business. He's acquired all of our assets, all of our intellectual properties.
Yep.
Left us with the name Movie Film Studios. Yep. Rebranded that 53-story building with all the lawyers as Sydney Down Under Films.
Yes.
And we're back to basics, back to square one. We've done this before. Mm-hmm. We originally started as two film studio executives in a small room just discussing film ideas.
Yes.
And that's just where we are at the moment.
You grow from there. And if Hollywood teaches me anything, it's that if you get knocked back, you can climb the ladder again and reach the top.
Exactly.
It's the Hollywood success story that everyone's been looking for, right? So what does that mean for us? It means that we don't have any of our assets anymore. We don't have 50 floors of lawyers. We certainly don't have a green room anymore.
No.
We don't have a memorial theatre, unfortunately. And as a result, we weren't able to really watch an entire film today.
Well, really, they've adopted our business practice of watching Blu-ray release films, discussing them, finding out the core of what makes those films tick, and then making those films. We're going to go one step ahead of them.
Yeah.
Why wait for a film to be released on Blu-ray? Why even wait for it to come out at the cinema?
Yeah.
Why not just use trailers as the impetus for our films and beat other studios as well as Sydney Down Under Films to the market?
That's right.
And we don't have a memorial theatre anymore. That's a little bit, can't watch those things on the big screen. And whilst we may be relegated to watching trailers on YouTube to find out what's going on in the Hollywood world out there, that's fine. We will take what we've got.
Yep.
The Wi-Fi here might not be very good. The trailers might buffer every 30 seconds or so, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. It gives us a little bit of a chance as well while it's buffering to think about it, think about what we've seen, how we're going to take it and morph it into something that is our own and beat our competition.
Exactly.
So as a result, we don't have a box office report for you this week because it's not our film anymore.
That's Wombat Barnes and the Cave of the Cryptocurrency.
Correct, yes.
That's we don't get the spreadsheet report of how many ticket sales.
Luckily, we do hold on to the licensing for all of our existing films. So all of those are coming with us.
We don't own the intellectual property, but Mufasa Woodadida has a licensing agreement to stream those films. Indeed. So you can still watch them.
Yes.
Again, our server is just an old PC we've hooked up to the really bad Wi-Fi. So if we think the buffering's bad on YouTube, wait till you try and watch anything on Mufasa Woodadida.
But we have to start somewhere.
Exactly.
We have to start somewhere. And look, all power to Dave, and obviously that company now also has Kieran and Kieran's mum.
Yeah.
But all power to them. I wish them the very best of luck. I'm not bitter about this at all. I feel that sometimes a fresh start is what you need.
Exactly. Clean
Just what the doctor's ordered. Yep. To that end, what we have for you today is a lineup of trailers that we've sat down and watched. So what's our first cab off the ranks there?
All right. So the first actual trailer
Yes.
off the rank is a film called Game Night.
Yes.
Starring our good friends Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams.
Yes, indeed. So the concept of this film is that it's a couple and their friends who engage in a sort of once a week game night.
Board games
where they play
evening,
board games and all sorts of other types of games. And then one night, Kyle Chandler.
Yep, so coach from Friday Night Lights.
Yes, indeed. And the
early edition where he got the newspaper before anyone else and spent the day trying to solve all the world's problems.
Yes, indeed, and a bunch of other films you've definitely seen before. So he proposes to this group that they play a new type of game, a game where they won't know if it's real or fake, and it eventually becomes this kind of high-stakes action film whereby they are racing. Are they racing? They're sort of like
who knows?
Up against a bunch of criminals.
So he's put his car up, his sports car up as the prize for the winning the game night, and it sort of feels very much like The Game, the Michael Douglas, Sean Penn film, where it's supposed to be heightened reality.
Yep.
And then I think the joke is that they get sucked into it and actually end up embroiled in a criminal endeavor that they're not supposed to be part of.
Yeah.
And so we're not sure where the game starts and the criminal endeavor ends, and neither of the people who are in it, they just sort of think they're going on this sort of weird role-playing chase. It looks all right.
I'm assuming that it's mostly skewed towards comedy. It's the action comedy genre.
Yeah.
Which you don't necessarily see a lot of these days, do you?
No, it feels very much like Date Night. Steve Carell, Tina Fey did a film where they were like, oh, we're a married, boring couple. We should go out on a date we never ever get to, and then they get embroiled up in this sort of like criminal shooting. Is it from
the makers of that?
No, it's from the guys who brought you Horrible Bosses.
Oh, the guys.
The guys who brought you Horrible Bosses is the way that it's phrased.
Yes.
In terms of that, I think it's writer-director team Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly. You may recognize John Francis Daly as like this 12-year-old kid from the TV show Freaks and Geeks, with Seth Rogen and James Franco and a whole bunch of guys that came through that as well.
I do like that tagline though, from the guys that brought you some of the film.
It doesn't specify.
It doesn't specify, so it could literally be anyone that worked on that film in any kind of capacity did help to bring that film to fruition. Therefore, if they then decide to work on another film, they are the guys that brought
you. I mean, and it just has to be two people. Normally, it's like from the executive producer of Independence Day.
Yeah.
But like, if it's two of them and one's the executive producer and one's the writer, it's like from the guys who brought you. And it's like can be writers, can be directors, can be producers, can be
caterers,
catering services. All of them. They were all integral in that bringing of that film into the public eye, and so they deserve to be tagged in the credit there.
Yeah, it's this film is again one of those kind of fish out of water films whereby characters who don't know this world are thrown into a world of high octane action and energy, and sort of coming to terms with like, oh, that's a real gun, and that actually hurts when you shoot me.
I mean, the main guys are people who play board games every week. Couples who get together. It's a couples film as well. So it's all about that relationship of, is this relationship stale and what do we need to do to breathe life into it? And, this trailer specifically, which there was a earlier trailer we watched quite a while ago, specifically deals with where Rachel McAdams met Jason Bateman and how they fell in love and the fact that he's super competitive. And then it sort of shows some of the other couples, which is one of the guys from... New Girl, who's Winston. He plays Winston in New Girl. I don't know what the actor's name is. He and his couple, and then there's like a really dense and stupid guy where lots of laughs are going to come because he doesn't realize the stakes that they're in. So
it's Rat Race again, isn't it?
Yeah,
with violence instead of wholesome hijinks.
Yeah, I think at least in Rat Race, I don't know if this one the couples are working against one another or they're all trying to solve the puzzle. I suppose if there's a prize of a sports car, they must have pitched it. But again, the trailer doesn't really specify exactly what it is or what Kyle Chandler's got himself into, or whether it seems like it's criminal enterprise, but actually it's just super elaborate like the game was.
Because there is a scene later on in that trailer where Kyle Chandler is tied up in a chair and looks like he's not... very comfortable with what's actually happening, as if he's lost control of the game as well.
Yeah. Also, you do see shots of people getting sucked into jet engines.
Yeah, there's that too.
And I'm like, I don't think you can set up a fake game where real life people get murdered.
Well, it could be like, have you seen Now You See Me?
I saw the first one. I did not see the second one.
I saw the second one, which is horrendous rubbish. But they try to justify every single moment of impossible magic with some kind of like completely obvious reason for it. So like there's a famous scene in the trailer where they jump into a tube in LA or New York or something, and then they come out the other end in Shanghai in China, and what's meant to have happened in that journey is they were very quickly put to sleep while they're going through that tube, and then while they were asleep they were carted off into China and then put back in the tube into another tube to slide out the other end and then wake up. And so they think that they've gone through one tube, and it's ridiculous. But this film could potentially do that as well. Could try and justify those kind of really outrageous moments and just say, "Oh no, it was just a crash test dummy."
A crash test dummy who was piloting a motorcycle and driving it. It was equipped with AI and it had hyper-realistic skin on it.
That's right, yeah.
And we've put bags of blood in it, so when it got shot, it exploded with those bags of blood.
Yeah. Or they reveal like Carl Chandler is actually a robot instead. And it's a whole role reversal kind of thing.
Yeah, it's Milton Bradley's Kyle Chandler, and he is the board game. That's the big twist.
That's right, yeah.
It's just one giant ad for the new latest craze.
Hey, there's a nice thing to do. Make a product and then and use a film to sell it like they did for Battleship.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, speaking of that, there's a lot of the Friday Night Light cast in this as well. So again, Peter Berg, who did Friday Night Lights and Battleship, likes using the same actors, and there's a few of them showing up here. So it's interesting. What I really like about this film is that there's a clear demographic of who they're aiming for. They're aiming for sort of married couples with young kids who don't really get a chance to go out and do high-octane adventures. Yeah. And it's those characters that are being thrown into this world with a little bit of comedy hijinks, little bits of film references. They talk about how Jason Bateman's going to run his car into like the wheel of the plane, and Rachel McAdams is just like, just like Liam Neeson did in Taken 3. It's like, did he do that in Taken 3? It's like, little moments of levity in amongst that action as well. So
it looks like it could be pretty fun. There's a scene right at the end of the trailer where Jason Bateman's bleeding, and his blood is inadvertently like dripping onto a small white dog. And staining it red, and then he goes to try and clean it up with club soda or something, and ends up just making the dog completely pink.
Yeah, and then because the dog's wet, it does the thing where it sort of shakes itself dry and spreads the blood all over everything. I'm like, this is funny. It's like it's a funny scenario, and it's escalating. Yeah. Again, the John Francis Daley, who did and his friend did Burt Wonderstone, which was particularly unfunny, and a few other bits and pieces here and there that have been a bit hit and miss, to be honest. So hopefully this one's a hit. I do like board games myself, so they've sort of nailed that. We'll see how it goes.
Yes, we will indeed. So, trailer 2, what's up next?
This is a Netflix film. Yes. We did a bit of a Netflix a few weeks ago when we looked at Bright. This trailer wasn't out at the time. It's a film called Mute. By writer-director Duncan Jones, son of David Bowie,
indeed,
and director of Moon,
Source Code, and the horrendous World of Warcraft film.
Yeah, Moon is such a fantastic film.
It really is.
It's really well done. Source Code, not so much. It's an all-right film, but its message is kind of mixed, and it doesn't like really.
Source Code was before Moon, if I recall.
No, Moon was the first film.
Never mind. Moon, fantastic concept. A simple concept, but just executed really well. Source Code, I haven't seen. I'm going to take your word for it. And World of Warcraft, which was trying far too hard to be something that it was never, ever going to be.
Yeah, so the basic premise of Source Code was that Jake Gyllenhaal died in a train crash, I think, and they were like almost died, or was like, and they managed to sort of tap into his memories and brain, and then by him tapping into that, he could relive the moment and investigate where the bomb was. By obviously he didn't know where it was, but it was sort of like a time travel thing with his memories, and he could then sort of investigate it and relay that information on, so they could use that information to find out what happened. It was a little bit 12 Monkeys in that sort of respect. It felt like underdeveloped in a lot of ways. Where that film was 12 Monkeys, this film, Mute, sort of feels like Blade Runner. I don't know if it's going to be underdeveloped. It's got Alexander Skarsgård in it. It's got Paul Rudd with a goofy
mustache,
great big mustache. It's set in a distant enough future where there's flying cars, and it looks very much like the streetscape of Blade Runner. And if you asked us what the film's about,
not a clue.
We cannot tell you.
Not a single clue. So there seems to be a woman with blue hair who is in love with our main character, the
Alexander Skarsgård, who is mute. He can't speak for some reason. Not explained why.
And then she leaves, and then there's two guys chasing Alexander for reasons. Paul Rudd's one of them.
And Alexander Skarsgård likes to get into fights and punches people, but he can't do that because he's a bartender in a nightclub. And blue-haired lady, who may be a robot, and maybe it's like a forbidden love between cyborg and human, because everyone else treats her really badly. Again, no idea. The trailer's just sort of full of these weird shots of...
There's a whole bunch of just... I don't know, is this based on something? Is there something that we're missing in terms of context? But it's just a whole bunch of shots connected together with no real story being told.
Exactly. And it looks like that sort of concept artist's wet dream where it's just like, oh, what's a cool, weird future fashion that we can do? Or what's a cool, weird future hairstyle, makeup, like weird mustache, weird cars, and it's all just sort of like, let's hire 1 million concept artists and see what sort of vision of the future we can have.
It's like, let's take the Blade Runner aesthetic and go ultra vibrant and ultra colorful and make it look real over the top. Kind of in the same way that the most recent Ghost in the Shell film looked. No real direction in terms of art, but just like every single future trope that you wanted, all there. Load them in, back the truck up, tip it out, and just tip everything onto the set. In terms of what this film is going to be, no idea.
Absolutely no clue. But it is, the one thing to take away here is a really big name director doing a straight-to-Netflix release. So the same with David Ayer, who did Bright, had previously done Suicide Squad and End of Watch and Training Day. And then we look at Duncan Jones, the last few films, he's got probably budgets of over sort of $200 million.
Yeah.
Now sort of getting straight to Netflix releases. It's a bit of a, like, big actors, big name directors. Rather than, Adam Sandler signs an 8-movie deal and just churns out garbage for a couple of years. But apparently he's re-signed as well. Netflix have re-signed with Adam Sandler to make more movies.
I think there are a lot of people that watch those films as well, just because they're there.
I think I watched like a quarter of like the Ridiculous Six or whatever that.
Oh, the Western one.
I watched all of. He did one with David Spade, which wasn't the worst, and then I watched part of. True Confessions of an Actual Assassin or some whoever Paul Blart Mall Cop is, he was in that one, and like I watched it, I'm like, oh, the first 20 minutes of this is okay, and then like it gets into and now the guy who writes about spy thrillers is in a spy thriller, and I'm just like, oh god, this is painful. But
but I kind of look at it the other way in terms of like, you may be impressed that Netflix is getting all these big name directors and directors that have had helmed films with huge budgets. But to me, it seems like Netflix is becoming the salvaging ground for directors that have had films that have flopped massively.
That's true.
So David Ayer,
his Suicide Squad was garbage.
Suicide Squad was rubbish. And even Fury before that was very mixed in terms of reaction.
Is that David Ayer? The tank one?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you've got Duncan Jones, who, Moon, phenomenal. Source Code, whatever. Warcraft.
Yeah, he's on the downward slide. Soon enough, M. Night Shyamalan will be doing a Netflix film. You should see the trajectory of his career is ridiculous. Like, it goes Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, Lady in the Water. And you look at the IMDb scores, and it's just like 9, 8.7, 8.2, 7.6, 6.5, and then suddenly you start hitting like After Earth.
When you get to After Earth,
it's like it's a steady decline. He did that one with James McAvoy, Fracture or something like that last year, which was actually semi-decent.
Yeah, but they're the kind of films that don't get any kind of, like, no one...
Split? I actually can't remember what it's called. There's something to do with his fractured
personality. They
personality.
don't make a huge impact anymore. Remember when After Sixth Sense came out and everyone knew the name M. Night Shyamalan?
Yeah.
The only reason we all know the name M. Night Shyamalan is because of Sixth Sense.
Exactly.
No one cares.
And The Happening.
Sure.
Mark Wahlberg. It was the trees. The trees were doing it all along.
Oh, well, let's not talk about Signs then. How are they defeated in Signs? By water?
Yeah. 2/3 of the planet covered in a substance that kills them.
Well, I suppose that's the same as War of the Worlds, isn't it?
No, War of the Worlds, they were here all along, buried in the ground, and yet somehow didn't have an immunity to our viruses.
Apparently.
That's now you did mention that we watched 3 trailers this week. We did actually watch 4. We were not going to talk about the one called Hereditary, but I really want to touch on it slightly for some very good reasons. Mm-hmm. It's basically a horror thriller with Toni Collette. She makes doll houses. It's kind of creepy. Her mother dies. She has a creepy looking daughter, and it's just super weird and not the kind of film that I like to watch.
Nope.
But what I really want to talk about this in terms of the trailer is the snippets of text that come up during the trailer. Because obviously the trailer is supposed to be looking nice and creepy and horrible.
Yeah.
Whereas the Netflix one that we watched, Mute, sort of had nothing to tell you what the story was going on.
Yeah.
This one has those shots of, there's a person asleep and they're covered in flies and it's creepy, or someone spontaneously bursts into fire, or a bird hits the window and breaks its neck, and then the creepy little girl gets a pair of scissors and cuts off its head, and it's all really creepy. But then you have the snippets of text on black sort of come up going, this generation's The Exorcist. It'll make your head spin and throw up just like The Exorcist. So chilling and creepy, you'll have nightmares forever. And like normally they take like one or two. This one, like between every single shot, had its own sort of snippet, and it must have been from the same review because it was just comparing it to The Exorcist over and over again.
Exactly.
But to give it context, they've just used those cutouts,
which makes me wonder how they got those reviews. So did they release this trailer like in that tiny gap between the screening for the press and then the general release? Because that's the only time they would have got it. Like usually, a lot of so Disney, for instance, doesn't usually do a lot of press airings anymore for their films, like so to avoid spoilers.
Yeah,
right. They won't do it for Marvel films. They won't do it for Star Wars. They'll just say you can review it when it comes out, or it's embargoed until it comes out. Whereas this film has like the kind of like notes or the kind of praise written for it that you might see when they've done the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, it must be an indie film where it's done film festivals,
possibly.
Because it doesn't seem like it's a big budget. And you go like, this is the beauty about horror films, is that they tend to be shot on quite a low budget and much lower than other things. And so in doing so, you don't need the big Hollywood studios behind you. So I imagine it's probably done, Toronto Film Festival or something like that, and that's why people have had a chance to see it. And now that it's got some traction, it's being picked up by distributors and put out sort of in a more international capacity. Whereas obviously things like the Marvel films are always going to have like a international release, and they try and do it simultaneously and things like that. So maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe some guy just snuck into the editing room and was like really blown away by it and decided to write some really nice things on his blog. And they went, thanks for writing those really nice things on your blog. We might actually cut some of those into the trailer.
Maybe we should do it. Maybe let's just start talking about Hereditary. And then hopefully they'll just pick a single sentence from it. So if you just say like chilling.
Yeah, exactly. And then it says like MFS down the bottom.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, what's MFS? And they type it into Google. And because our SEO is really, really bad, actually, what comes up? No, we're going to...
Well, I'll check it later. But yeah, if we just say like, chilling, atmospheric, dark.
Having said that, I do know if you type in movie film studios into Google, it comes up with the Wikipedia entry for major film studios. And I'm like, what's major film studios? Is that a competitor? And it's like, no, it's just a list of like Paramount, 20th Century Fox and TriStar, and they're the major film studios. I'm like, oh, why did it... We're movie film studios. It's like, no, you've got to get better SEO if you want to come up on Google.
We'll be on that list one day once we rebuild, reconquer the Hollywood landscape.
Exactly.
We'll be on that list above Paramount and above Universal somehow. Because M comes before P and U.
But not before D, so Disney's always going to be above us.
Well,
yeah.
We're still hoping they'll buy us out. Do we have another trailer?
We do. We watched the Ocean's 8 trailer. Now, this came out a while ago. I've deliberately avoided it for our This Week in Trailers spot. I do believe you watched it a little bit earlier on.
I did. I watched it when it came out. As is probably no secret to anyone that listens to this podcast, both Isaac and I are massive, at the very least, Ocean's 11 fans. We love the aesthetic. We love the way the film is shot. It's pretty much, at least to me, a perfect film. I don't have any real issues with it whatsoever. It's perpetually entertaining. I can go and watch that film at any point in it and be completely satisfied, unless it's like 3 minutes after the end credits have rolled.
I wouldn't say it's a perfect film. It's very, very good. And the first time watching it is just one of the most entertaining movie experiences that I can remember. And obviously, Steven Soderbergh's a great director. So we, again, went and watched the trailer for Ocean's 11, having watched the trailer for Ocean's 8. The trailer for Ocean's 11 is not very good. No. But we do know it's going to be a great film. And then it says, from the director of Erin Brockovich and one other film. I'm like, geez, Steven Soderbergh's done some great films
he has.
after Ocean's 11.
So it's important to note for Ocean's 8, this is not a Steven Soderbergh film. He produced it, but this is directed by
Gary Ross,
who has done
Pleasantville, Seabiscuit, and the Hunger Games. I think the first Hunger Games film.
And it doesn't have, or it has, I believe Matt Damon is in Ocean's 8, but for the most part...
We didn't see him in the trailer.
He's not in the trailer, but I know
confirmed.
that he's in it.
Yep, sure.
But as far as I'm aware, very few other of the main cast from the original films are in this one. And from also what I know, Sandra Bullock's character, who's playing the kind of ringleader of the group this time round, is actually George Clooney's character's sister.
Yeah, there's a moment in the trailer there where James Corden, who is also in this film, goes, "Is everyone in your family like this?" And she kind of smiles and goes, "Yeah, pretty much," as if to say, "Yeah, George Clooney is my brother. That's fine."
But this is okay. So I don't know what this film is going to be like.
No.
I'm perfectly happy to have another Oceans film because I do enjoy them, even the sequels.
I do not enjoy any
of
the other ones, but that's fine.
That's fair. I'm perfectly happy. I have obviously no issues whatsoever with it being an all-female cast. I think that's pretty awesome. But from the look of the trailer, you really get the sense that there's too many times where the characters are directly winking at the audience saying, "Hey, remember this bit from Ocean's 11? Remember that? How good was that? Now we're going to do the exact same thing, only it's not going to have any of the same gravitas as before."
I think it's always problematic. Like, this film is going to have so much baggage coming into it that it's going to have to be twice as good just to be like half as successful.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird. But I mean, they've got a really great cast. So Sandra Bullock, Kate Blanchett, Helena Bonham Carter, Anne Hathaway, Rihanna is in it.
Yeah.
I've never seen a good film. Speaking of Peter Berg films, Battleship she was in was pretty bad. She was horrendous in Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. I don't know why they're going to rely so heavily. Mindy Kaling's in this. I quite like her from The Office and the Mindy Project, which, I mean, again, talking about people who like write and produce their own stuff. I appreciate that much more than people who sort of just come along and go, "Here's a script, give me $1 million, I'll do it."
Yeah.
And she actually works really, really hard to get her stuff out there, which I appreciate quite a lot. I don't know how she'll fare in a somewhat... I actually don't really see Ocean's 11 as being a comedy, but it is in a lot of ways a comedic
heist.
Film.
It's kind of a semi-farce. But I mean, the thing to me with the Ocean's films is that they're just incredibly slick.
Yes.
They're very cool. And I really hope that tone is carried over into this new one, because to me, that's a defining factor. Like, the Ocean's 11 or the Ocean's films, the originals, are so immaculately shot and so beautifully edited and acted in that they're a joy to watch purely for that. Purely for those reasons. So if Ocean's 8 goes down the path of like winky kind of dumb jokes and like awkward moments between all these characters and this and that, it's like, well, you've kind of lost the appeal of the series.
But if it's just a good, clever jewel heist, then it should be a great film.
Yeah.
The director, Gary Ross, has got 4 Oscar nominations, primarily for writing.
Yeah.
And he hasn't written this one, so I'm like, there's some good pedigree there. Oh no, he's not doing the thing that he's known for doing. He's directing now. That's fine. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We obviously already did our own sort of ancient Egyptian Ocean's 11, Nile 9, which was quite a successful film. We have a bit of a background there in that sort of style of film, but I mean, that slick con is really difficult to pull off because it does really require clever writing and great direction and subtle hints and clues all the way through.
Yeah. We'll see if you can get the sort of Steven Soderbergh touch without Steven Soderbergh actually being there. All
right, so they're the trailers that we've looked at this week. I'm sure there's some great ideas in there somewhere that we can pull apart.
Yeah.
I think before we do that, though, we should go somewhere green. I don't think legally we have to be in a green room anymore. The lawyers aren't really going to pull us up on it because we don't have any lawyers.
But I mean, to me, it's just a spiritual home for our films. They need to be birthed into the vibrant green that is a green room.
Yeah.
To that end, what I've done is I've gone to the shed outside. I've brought with me every single green thing that I own, and I've glued it to the walls. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to go out and buy paint yet. So until we do that, we're just going to have to put up with a green room that isn't actually painted green.
It'll do.
Coated in
It'll
paint,
absolutely
green stuff.
do. And I think, although we don't have the teleporter technology anymore, I do really like that audio sting.
I do too, yeah.
And I wouldn't mind just sort of listening to it as we walk out into our green shed, green room.
Here we go.
Quite a pleasant stroll.
It's not bad.
A nice bit of fresh air to get that creative juices flowing, and definitely not the same sort of torturous screams that we're used to with the audio sting. All right, so what is it in these trailers, or which of these trailers do we want to focus on to pull apart, to unravel, to build our own film out of?
All right. Personally, Game Night speaks to me.
Yeah, I mean, Ocean's 8 is probably the only other clear choice there, and we've already done Nile 9.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I don't think we've actually done like a comedy film. I think a lot of our films have been very action, serious, horror, sci-fi.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see what movie film studios can produce in that sort of comedic vein.
Indeed. I mean, are we going to do a comedy action mashup as well, or a comedy something mashup?
Comedy action, I think, is where Game Night fits in.
Okay.
And taking the ideas from Ocean's 8 of having that heavy ensemble cast, which is a little bit sort of similar in Date Night, where you have Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, and other recognizable faces. We do the same thing here, where it's an action comedy ensemble cast.
Yes.
The question is, like, what's the impetus? And are we doing a fish out of water thing as well?
Well, I think more than anything, it needs to be for something mundane. So Date Night, obviously, depending on who you talk to, dates can be relatively mundane.
Yeah.
2 people go out, have a dinner, yada, yada, yada. Game Night, bunch of people come together to play board games. There's nothing really action-packed or sort of that would lend itself to be an action-packed kind of film in those scenarios.
Yeah.
But these films sort of take them into different directions. So is that something we need to do? We need to pull something that is entirely mundane. And the first thing that comes into my head, maybe because I'm looking at all your books there, but I want to go like reading club or a book club.
Book club.
Yeah.
Book club is perfect because it has that, couples mentality. We can have, it doesn't always have to be couples, but, there's definitely book clubs where couples can get involved, or 1 or 2 other people can come through, and you can have that ensemble cast there. People from different social backgrounds that sort of, I brought my friend to book club this week. That's great. There's a mundane social interaction. How does it escalate?
All right, I have the idea. I have the idea right here. Cult, book club cult, constantly trying to recruit for new people until they reach enough people to be able to enact their grand plan. I don't know what that grand plan is yet, though. But so the idea is that it's kind of like 3 people start a book club because they need to recruit people. They need to recruit enough people into this plan that they have going to, let's say, rob a library of a rare book.
All right, so I'm thinking we go actual cult, right? So there is like a book of power, or like like a Necronomicon sort of thing, and this cult is trying to get their hands on it.
Yep.
We have a couple who's just new in town.
Yeah.
They've had to leave their old book club behind, and are looking to join a new book club.
Yeah.
And somehow mistakenly join what they think is a book club, but is actually a cult who's trying to get them their hands on a book of power.
Yeah. Because it's that perfect kind of fish out of water, what's going on
exactly.
kind of thing. And I think what should happen is they think they're going through some kind of small town initiation ceremony for this particular book club. In that, let's say like they ask them, like the book club asks them to prove their worth by acquiring a particular book or a particular edition of a book. And so they kind of try and do that. Maybe they they hit up there's a couple of scenes of like hitting up Amazon. They're like, I can't find this edition, and then they find out that it's sort of like catalogued away in a like small town library.
Exactly,
somewhere.
In the basement of the Catholic Church. That's like private reading. You're not supposed to get through. There's elements of Da Vinci Code, of National Treasure.
For sure.
I kind of feel very sort of like Stepford Wives or Pleasantville kind of vibe here, where it is a small town, everything sort of seems normal, but there's this undercurrent of I don't know if we go with this actual sort of supernatural. Are they trying to open up like demon portals into the world? Is it that kind of...
I think so. I think we need to take a leaf out of the Ghostbusters / Indiana Jones playbook, in that 90% of the film is just... can happen to anyone, but then there's that last 10% where it's just like, oh, okay, there are supernatural powers, or there are ghosts, or there are religious artifacts that will go through your eyes and burn your soul.
So in that respect, there's our main couple who are fish out of water. There's the cult group, but then there's also people who have infiltrated the cult group who are actual sort of like demon hunters, who are cultist hunters who are trying to get to the bottom of it. And there's like sort of a twist halfway through where these guys are revealed to be, your Van Helsing types who are then sort of masquerading as small town book club.
I love the idea that those demon hunters don't know what side of the fence the new couple stands on.
Yeah.
And they're not actually aware that the couple has no idea what's going on. They think that it's an ordinary book club. Great. I'm
on board with this one as well.
Really loving this idea.
I have this bit in my head where their friends from their old town come to visit to join the book club as well, and this is where we start building up the ensemble cast, because you have the actual couple, you have the demon hunter couple, you have the friends from out of town who come to visit sort of couple, you have the devout cultists people in there as well, and it all starts escalating. Are we going to sort of delve a little bit more into the mythology here? Is it going to be like a Cthulhu thing, or is it going to be like a Catholicism, angels and demons thing? Is it going to be more like there was a book, a movie that came out a while ago, and I can't remember the name of it. It had Aubrey Plaza and a few other people in it who they were live action role playing.
Yep.
And they as a prop, they got their hands on a book that sort of actually summoned a demon. And that sort of they went for a very D&D aesthetic where there's like lots of fantasy creatures which could come through there. It could be anything.
I really like the idea of Cthulhu, because I don't think we've had a good Cthulhu film in quite a while.
Yeah.
And to me, like, Cthulhu is the sort of granddaddy of mythical nasties.
H.P. Lovecraft. It's got that very sort of intense sanity and insanity and blurring the lines between what is real and what's not real, and then you sort of have like these Cthulhu cultists, and maybe we actually base the book club, like they join a book club and it's like, it's very H.P. Lovecraft theme. That's a little bit sort of strange. I mean, his writings are, he's overtly racist. If you've ever actually read some of the poems that he's written, is just absolutely horrific. So maybe we take this opportunity to tear him to shreds as well. Maybe they're trying to summon a H.P. Lovecraft back using like a summoning ritual, and that's not a bad thing. And then we can actually sort of take the opportunity to have like the final climactic scene be our guys just wailing on this horrifically racist author whose work is somewhat celebrated, but as a person was just not particularly nice.
Okay, great. Okay. So we assume that H.P. Lovecraft is actually a mythical figure as well.
Exactly.
He developed the power. Let's say, so he wrote one last manuscript before he died, and I use died in inverted commas because he didn't die. He just left the astral plane.
Exactly.
And he wrote one last manuscript, which was sort of in secret and hidden in a basement somewhere.
Yeah.
For how long has he been dead for? I want to say hundreds.
No. He was writing in like the 20s and 30s, I think. So not that long.
A while.
And we'll do some research, just Wikipedia, what sort of town he was born in and lived in and died in. We sort of set it roughly around there.
I'll say Arkansas. That's a
that sounds about right. That's a state. I'm sure there's a town in Arkansas.
It's hard, man. I've been in Hollywood for too many years.
Little Rock.
No,
I don't think that's in Arkansas, but whatever.
No, it is. I'm sure it is.
Whatever. We don't actually have to make it up. These facts actually exist. What we pretend is that the mythos that he wrote pretending it was fiction was actually sort of all non-fiction.
Yeah.
And he was trying to harness the power of the ancients or yada yada, summon Cthulhu, whatever you want to happen in there. And so we have this sort of like, Cthulhu book clubs that these people get involved in and tied up in. And it all sort of just burns,
I think like our hapless couple as well, like in their previous town, had sort of become really fed up with like the Jane Austen book club. And like the Oliver Wilde book clubs, and just like they wanted something with a bit more spice to it.
Oliver Wilde?
Oscar Wilde.
I think I actually have a book by an Olivia Wilde. No, Olivia Wilde's someone else entirely.
It's an actor, isn't it?
Yeah, too many people with the last name
I think we
Wilde.
need to cast her.
Okay, well, there you go. Olivia Wilde, cast number one.
She can be like one half of the partner of the couple that joins the book club.
The main couple or the demon hunter couple? Because she's pretty badass. She could be demon hunter couple. Yeah. So okay. If she's one half of the demon couple, who's her significant other?
Well, I mean, could be anyone.
Could be
anyone.
For Maggie Gyllenhaal, just sort of popped into my head.
Yeah.
I think they'd make a pretty badass demon hunting team.
Yep. And I think the best thing about them as well is that they would look relatively unassuming in terms of like being just a normal couple going out doing couple things. You wouldn't necessarily look at them twice and go, "There's something weird about them."
Yeah, until they sort of have that they're wearing bandoliers full of like
trench coats and
trench coats and bandoliers and firing crossbows that have like holy water, or I don't know how it all works.
Why would they be wearing bandoliers and firing crossbows?
Because the bandoliers, instead of having bullets, have like these like tiny little vials of liquid that are like, this one, if it hits a tentacle monster and it's an abomination in its head, will send it back to the nether realm.
Okay. I thought you'd meant a bandolier full of like actual arrows in them. I think that's not really practical.
No, exactly. No, these are little glass vials, and they sort of like you can swap them out on the arrowheads, and instead of because physical damage doesn't deal these night terror things quite as much. You need to hit them with like righteous objects of power and
holy water and that kind of stuff.
I've never read a H.P. Lovecraft book. Like having spoken about game night, I've played quite a lot of board games that are Lovecraft themed.
Yes.
So it kind of bodes well that the only knowledge is based on board games. I'm sure that like we will have a research. We don't have a research team anymore.
Well, that's fine.
It's just the two of us again.
But we don't need it.
Screw it.
Like so much of this film is rooted in fact that we're just tacking on a little bit of extra to all the fact. So all the research is done. Hit up Wikipedia, load up that article on H.P. Lovecraft, you're done.
Yeah.
We're just tacking on a slight addendum to the end of it saying, oh, by the way, he wasn't writing fiction. It was all non-fiction, and also he hasn't died. He's just busy elsewhere at the moment. Okay. So we've got our Demon Hunter cast.
Yep.
What we need then is a couple of cult members, and we also need, obviously, our hapless couple who have just moved to town and have joined the H.P. Lovecraft
We can
club.
do what Game Night's done with Jason Bateman and pick a reasonably well-known comedic actor from a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one who really sort of springs to mind, to be honest.
I immediately thought of Will Arnett.
Yeah, I mean, we can't just take all... I think Will Arnett would probably make a better cultist in this film. Like, I think he'd be a great addition to, but like with that sort of like that fake smile. And like it's like, oh, he kind of seems friendly, but like when you look a little bit closer, it's kind of a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
There haven't been a lot of really good sitcoms for the last couple of years to draw people from. Like,
well, I mean, thinking of the sitcoms that I like, 30 Rock, The Office.
Yeah.
Veep was great.
We can't get Tina Fey in. She's already done Date Night.
What about Veep? Why don't we get Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Yeah, it's possible. Again, I know she did a sketch with Amy Schumer where they're talking about there's a certain age where women get to where they're not cast as sort of like, sexy lead roles anymore. And she's probably like, I don't know, I kind of see her maybe more as like the Catholic priest in the church.
Okay, yeah.
In this sort of scenario.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so I keep shooting down all the people that you suggest for the lead roles here. We could get John Krasinski, right?
From The Office.
Yeah, why not get her and Emily Blunt? I like the real life couple, very very fun.
Yeah,
they do the whole. So they've got the prank war going on with Jimmy Kimmel. So and I don't think they've actually been in a film together.
No, they haven't. No.
Maybe not. I think this could be the perfect time to roll them out.
Yeah. And I mean, like we had speaking of Will Arnett, when he and Amy Poehler were together, they used to do a lot of films together. They did that Blades of Glory film.
Yeah, they were in Blades of Glory.
Brother and sister. So why not bring back the tradition of casting husband and wife?
Are you trying to get Amy Poehler cast as Will Arnett? That's going to be a tough get. There's going to have to be some contract negotiations, but they've always worked well together. Just that because they've since got divorced shouldn't be a barrier to trying to.
Fine. Worst comes to worst. I have learnt enough from when we used to have workshops. The digital workshop and the practical workshop. I know enough about comping things together on green screen. So if worse comes to worse and Will Arnett and Amy Poehler won't work together on the same set, we'll shoot them separately.
We'll Winklevoss them.
Yeah, and then we'll just comp them together in post. That's fine. I can knock that out.
Do we tell them that they're playing a married couple, or do we just say, "Oh, Amy, you're the main villain, cult leader, bad person in the film," and then we get Will in separately? It was like, "Will, you're the main villain, evil cult guy leader." It's like, should I step on this mark? It's like, no. See the X next to that mark? That's your mark.
I have an even greater idea as well. Give them the same script as well. Yeah. So they're saying the exact same lines, and then we'll overlay the two of them together. It's
that Shining. Yeah. We hope you never leave, never leave, and you have that sort of echo of like them saying the same words at the same time, and it's super creepy.
And like because they're sort of just staring blankly ahead and at, like to the side as well because there's no one there. It'll look great.
It will look fantastic. Yeah. I like
Perfect.
that.
So I think there's only one more cast member to cast, and that is like when I'm assuming, spoiler alert, that H.P. Lovecraft does come back.
Absolutely.
So the hapless couple, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, actually do accidentally bring back H.P. Lovecraft. So we need an actor who has the gravitas, the seriousness, and the I guess the world-weary kind of persona to portray H.P. Lovecraft.
See, I don't actually know what H.P. Lovecraft looks like. I'm going to look it up and then try and say like the first actor that comes in my mind who has the same sort of facial features. Having said that, Gary Oldman has just played Winston Churchill.
Yes.
And Gary Oldman looks nothing like Winston Churchill. And through the magic of prosthetics, they've managed to do something to him.
Yeah. Gary Oldman doesn't look like Gary Oldman anytime you play some film.
No, he is so versatile. Nicolas Cage.
Really?
Not a lot, but enough that I feel as though that the H.P. Lovecraft is going to be so manic and so wild and so out there. And obviously we're trying to show that this character of H.P. Lovecraft trying to embrace these eldritch powers has so overwhelmed him that he's so manic and not human anymore. Yeah. And that's just like, we don't even need to give Nick Cage any directions. He'll just act that way anyway.
I was going to say, the only direction we do need to give Nicolas Cage, we can just say, you know how some directors might say, watch these films or watch this video or whatever to get an idea of what we're coming at. What we'll do is we'll get that video on YouTube, which is just a super cut of Nicolas Cage's craziest moments in acting, and say, this is what we want you to do, and just show him a video of himself doing some of the most bizarre acting I've ever seen, and just say, we want that every single second that you're on screen for, and then let him go nuts, let him loose.
Perfect.
We won't even write a script for him. I don't
think
just
so.
Let him improv his way through it.
I really hate when they do that in films, but they're like trying to improv jokes. This H.P. Lovecraft is just painfully not funny. Yeah. He's just manic and weird, and he's only really in it for that little bit where they managed to summon him back, and John Krasinski and Emily Blunt and Maggie Gyllenhaal and Olivia Wilde have to sort of take him down,
send him back. And I suppose it's that. Will our hapless couple ever realize what they've done, or is it just going to be like right at the end? They just think, oh, great special effects or something. No,
I think there's definitely a point there where they're just sort of like, this is just like a fun little sort of thing with the additional research for the books, and then when they actually see the Elder Sign
Cthulhu craft
create a portal to the nether region, or the nether region? I don't think that's what
the netherworld, perhaps.
Yes, netherworld's probably what I'm going for, but nether region could be.
It's H.P. Lovecraft's nether region.
Exactly. That's a great, there's a great world of mythology to draw upon there, and
is it in public domain now?
I don't know what public domain's like 50 years after the author's death. So that's probably it's probably getting up there.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. Again, I wouldn't have thought to check. Normally, our lawyers do all that, but again,
given in these slightly more skint times for us, we really have to be careful with how much money we spend. This film won't really cost us that much.
No, small town. I mean, like Sam Raimi and those guys, they went out in the woods and shot on a really low budget. I think we can probably find
Peter Jackson shot Frighteners in New Zealand, and that was like,
and he did Brain Dead on a less budget. So we find a tiny little town. We get all of the townsfolk to be extras. We know Nick Cage will just be in anything. Won't it cost that much? Yep. I'm sure we can get the other guys in for not a lot of money.
Well, look, we get John Krasinski in, and he'll...
Yeah, I mean, Emily Blunt's just probably going to show up to set every day anyway, just to see how it's going. Yeah. And again, we just say, you can... We framed it so you're not actually in shot, Emily, so feel free to just sort of sit there and talk to your husband if you want to. And then we secretly widen the shot out, and she's in the film too. We don't even have to pay her.
We have learnt so much from that film,
Bowfinger. It is the Movie Film Workshop manual on how to not get away with making films with high-end Hollywood actors and actresses without having to pay them.
Okay, one last thing before we close up this session. We need a name for this film.
We do need a name for the film. Date Night and what was the other one?
Game Night.
Game Night.
Yeah.
They have a night there. Yeah. I'm not really... I like that sort of like book club.
Book club.
I think book club's probably good enough for it. It doesn't really sell the whole thing. There's like maybe another qualifier in there as well that
see, okay, so the initial thing that I had was you take, you know how you have crosswords?
Yeah.
So it's book club, but then you use the C from club and do a down or an up-down thing that says
an
Lovecraft.
acrostic.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So you use the C from club to make up the word craft of Lovecraft and have that going vertically.
Lovecraft book club. You see, you're doing design aesthetics, so I'm just trying to think
It's
of
not
the
very
words
good.
itself. No. Bookcraft? No.
Craft club?
Love book. Craft look book club love craft. I think we actually kind of nailed it with book club.
Yeah.
I think we're
It
trying
has to be book club.
trying to overcomplicate it so
Yeah.
much. Again, as much as some of these Cretaceon and the Seed of Life, which is just sort of like perfect sci-fi names.
Yep.
What we're going for is that simple. Not middle-aged, but sort of like new parent couples want to go see a film. They see action comedy. It's called book club. They go, this is going to be nice and wholesome. If you go Lovecraft book club,
Yeah, it's too obscure.
Like people are like, I'm not really sure what's going on.
Yeah.
It's too much. Just keep it nice and simple. 2 words.
It's
book club.
It says it does what it says on the tin kind of approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we want. Keep it simple. If we complicate things, we're going to run into the exact same situation that we had before, and that we're going to have to hire 1,000 lawyers.
Exactly.
And then they're eventually going to oust us because that's just what they do.
Yeah.
I think that's a wrap.
That is indeed.
Book club.
Yeah. Housekeeping.
Yes, housekeeping. We are on the internet, believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a website, moviefilmstudios.net, where you can find all of our previous episodes, some bios of us, and some other little bits and pieces that are being constantly added to it.
Exactly. I think this will be the official start of Season 2.
Yes,
so
indeed.
all the other episodes, 1 to 20, I believe we got up to, will be in Season 1.
Season 1, yep.
And Season 2 begins today. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how long Season 2 lasts for. Who knows, we may break back into a different market and change the format again. Or
that's right.
Who knows? Who knows if we may making movies by Season 3.
No, we may just be making like movie review quotes that they put onto film trailers, and that's it. Single word quotes. Stunning.
I mean, we need some for the
we will,
the book club
the book club trailer. Yeah.
So I mean, we'll have to come up with some eventually.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll just invite some people around for a book club, or we'll read a really good book. And then we'll ask them what they thought about that good book, and we'll just take all the positive praise and say they were talking about book club, and we'll just paste it in there.
That's fine. There's nothing legally problematic about that at all. We are on Facebook. You can find us by searching for Movie Film Studios. We're on Twitter. We're at Movie Film Studio. I'm tempted to sell off more letters from that as well, so we can get some money back. I'm happy to be Movie Film Studio. If someone wants to buy the O.
Yeah, we'll continue to do the emoji clues.
Yes,
a little bit more difficult with the trailers, but obviously when we focus on the one, game night. So for all of you who guessed correctly, game night, this week, congratulations. We'll probably also put links up to the trailers that we've watched. It's been a little bit hard in the past, I imagine, for people who haven't seen the films that we've been talking about to take 2 hours out of their day to actually go and watch Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, and then at the end go, why did I spend 2 hours of my day watching that? This time around, though, we'll probably put the links up for the 3 or 4 trailers that we end up watching each week, and so you can spend 15 minutes getting up to speed if you really want to. A lot less homework to do there.
Indeed. And as per usual, you can find us on any place that you download podcasts from, so be that iTunes or be that
SoundCloud.
Sure. No, we're not on SoundCloud.
We're not on SoundCloud? No. What about Stitcher? I've heard people say iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher on other podcasts, and I just assumed that we were there on all of them.
We're not on SoundCloud. Stitcher, I have no idea.
Podbean is where
we're on, yes. Stitcher, I don't know.
Yeah, that's all right. Just search in any podcast app for Movie Film Studios. If it's not there, then it's a second-rate app, and you should go get a better one.
Exactly. On that note.
Yeah, I think all that remains is to thank you all once again for listening to our podcast. I've been Isaac.
And I've been AJ.
Roll credits.
Watch me